explain to people, I'm like a drop of water in an ocean full of gold, as is everybody else. I can put that drop in and become one with the Creator, or I can take that drop out and think I'm separate. But if I take the drop out, I'm still up. I'm just off on a journey. Make my way up through the clouds, down through the mountains, and get drunk by an elephant that then kisses me out, and then I go back into the water again. That was an interesting journey. But wait till I tell the folks at home about that one.
Yeah, and Adelaide, I'm working out how many sets of kidneys that water is drinking down there.
Oh.
I'd like to say that God also, is my understanding, maybe you can correct me, but God also is sovereign, that He, which actually is what gives us free will, because He's not telling us what to do, He's not over us in that way, which is actually what creates free will.
Yeah, He's not telling us what to do and not judging us. He says just go for it, it's all valid. Now we've been told that love is the be-all and end-all of the universe. Well, I hate to disappoint you people, but it's not. It's a construct of humans. Because at higher consciousness, the only thing that exists is a blissful state of existence, because you're aligned with your purpose. A blissful state of existence is not love. Love can't be decided. In fact, Source tells me, he says, it's like chasing rainbows. Looks pretty, but you can never grab hold of it. Some of the philosophies that I'm more than happy to share get you thinking outside the preconceived belief structures that you have. We've been all led to believe that the Pleiadians, for those of you who know the Pleiadians, they're beautiful, they're fantastic. Wait a minute, Pleiadians are part of the fifth dimensional Galactic Federation. Rules of the fifth dimensional Galactic Federation is you're not allowed to interfere with the goings on in other planets. So why are the Pleiadians interfering with everything here? Because they're breaching all the rules. It's because the reason the Pleiadians are here is because they're part of the problem. They're here to resolve the fact that they cover up their dark side, which is all part of the Lyran rules. And I've got videos to all of this stuff that I can give you guys links to down the track. It's like there's once you open the doors, you can't go back. That's the beauty of it. But what happens on the way is as you hear a lot of this information, your belief structures smack you in the head. If you believe, oh, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Who knows who Jesus really was? Who believes Jesus was an ascended master?
He was an Essene, wasn't he?
He was an Essene. Who were the Essenes?
They were the true keepers of the Gospels.
Well, hang on. The Essenes existed before the Gospels existed.
Yeah,
because the Gospels
when the
are about
Gospels
the
come
Essenes.
along, they're the ones running in hiding.
Yeah, but who were the Essenes? They were hiding?
Well, you had the Essenes, you had the scribes, the Sadducees.
Alright, good. Now, see what's happening? We're getting bits and pieces of information. Now I'm going to tell you something which some of you are going to go, what did he just say? Some of people will go, that couldn't be true. And others will go, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. Jesus Christ, the one we know of as Jesus Christ, was the son of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. Mary Magdalene was his half-sister. Now I can provide all the evidence to support all this, but I'm just going to put a simple one at you. Our calendar started in the year 0 based on the birth of who? Christ. Hasn't changed, we haven't skipped any years or anything like that. Who put the calendar in place? Julius Caesar, Julian calendar. And he put it in place in the year 42 BC. How does a calendar get put in place 42 years before the birth of the person it's supposedly based on by a group of people who are anti-Christian for 300 years? If you can answer me that question, then we might be able to think, oh, what's going on there? But let's go deeper into it. The theologians will actually tell you that they believe that Jesus was born 4 years before that. Guess who was born 4 years before 42 BC? Caesarion. Now, Julius Caesar was the King of Kings. He first invented that title to be the ruler of the Roman Empire. The ruler of the Egyptian Empire was called the Son of God. The only person in history who's held both titles was the heir to those thrones, Caesarion.
Never was a king of kings. Jesus, king of kings.
Just going into more, when so I've got 1,000 things going through my head at the moment. What was the question about? Caesarion. To be the pharaoh of ancient Egypt, you had to be married to the daughter of Isis. That's why the pharaohs married their sisters, because it was all about the bloodline of the women, which was the bloodline of the gods. Anyone know about the history of all of the American presidents and all the royalty? It's all through the bloodline of the woman, not through the man. Bloodline of the gods.
Wait a minute, wasn't there a very big problem in the Egyptian people of madness and birth defects because of this, because of marrying a sister?
No. The only birth defect story that comes up is about Tutankhamun. And they say Akhenaten had this irregular shape. Akhenaten was 16 foot tall because he insisted that all art be represented exactly as it was. He was not the father of Tutankhamun. The Egyptologists say he was, and they say that Amenhotep IV changed his name. But if you look at Amenhotep IV, he was human. Suddenly, Akhenaten is 16 foot tall with this very, very unusual shape, and all the images of him show him worshipping the sun with the hands and the arrows coming down. That sun is red, because the red sun in our solar system is Nibiru. It's the second sun in our solar system, because he came from there, and he was saying all consciousness comes from the sun, the second sun. The winged disc, for those of you who know anything about Egypt, is the disc with the two cobras and then the wings. It sits above every doorway. It only appears from the 18th dynasty onwards. Doesn't appear before then. What happened at the end of the 17th dynasty? At the time of Moses, at the time of a pole shift, at the time of the eruption of Thera, because the second sun was coming through, caused all these things. If I'll give you another one, and I'm not expecting anyone to believe what I'm telling you. If you're curious enough to delve into it, you're suddenly going to go, God. So who were the Essenes? Caesarion was sent to Sri Lanka and then to India to protect him after his father was assassinated. And whilst in India, he studied all the Vedic teachings which he was learning in the temples in Egypt. His time in the wilderness, because he was in India. And then he decided it was come back to claim the thrones. But to claim the two thrones, he had to find his sister. To be married to the daughter of Isis, he had to be married to his half-sister, Cleopatra Maleny, who had been taken by Octavius and sold off to the king of Juba, to whom she had a son. Now the king of Juba was a black man. So Mary Magdalene had a daughter who was black. Has anyone ever wondered where the idea of the Black Madonna came from? The Black Madonna came from Drusilla, who was Mary Magdalene's daughter, who finished up going to Spain. And the strongest bloodline came from Spain, which is why King Henry VIII was trying to marry Catherine of Aragon. It's all about bloodlines, bloodlines, bloodlines. That's why she wasn't murdered. That's why she didn't get her head cut off. Because of who she was. And then the next wife was Anne Boleyn. Now we're told Anne Boleyn was in the king's presence and he loved, all of this. Anne Boleyn was part of the Reformation movement in France. Thomas Cranmer brought her over and deliberately placed her there so that he could leave the Catholic Church to create the Church of England where he would be the ruler. Politics, politics, power, power, power. We're not being told the truth. If we're not being told the truth about this, what makes anyone think that we're being told the truth about history? The more you start questioning it, the more you find bits and pieces where you go, wait a minute, there's something different going on here. The Essenes was the Egyptian royal family, and they were in exile because they'd been chased out of Egypt. Do you remember they say Jesus wasn't a Jew? He wasn't. He was Egyptian. Joseph of Arimathea, and who was it who baptised him? John the Baptist, high priest, Egyptian high priest. He wasn't baptised. Jesus wasn't baptised.
And then King Herod was chasing after him. They went back to Egypt, didn't they?
I'll get to the last thing I was going to say there was he was anointed. The Pharaoh was anointed. And there are images of Jesus in Egypt with oil being poured over him to anoint him as the Pharaoh. It wasn't water, all this has been twisted. And the whole thing about Herod was, when Jesus was making himself, or Caesarion was making his way back to Rome to appear before the Senate to say, I am the son of Julius Caesar, I am the rightful ruler, a message went to Octavian saying, guess who's just turned up after 20 years in the wilderness? The message was, don't care what you do, get rid of him. Crucifixion is a way that you punish political prisoners. So he was strung up alongside Simon Zealots and Judas, who hated the Romans because they'd lost their beautiful lifestyle. When you start to put all the pieces together, you go, oh my God, that all makes sense. And all the timings line up as well. Everything lines up. Whereas the other story makes no sense. And he didn't die on the cross. He was taken down, he was put in a holding cell, he was rescued, and he went away, and you'll find his tomb in Srinagar in India. And all the people in India, in Srinagar, will tell you they're descended from Jesus. And the tomb's right there. Now wouldn't it be great if we could get a blood sample or a DNA sample from there? There's a few other places that we could get samples. Now I'm saying, don't believe anything I tell you. Take it with a grain of salt. I got passed on the information, and then I went and said, well, if I'm going to believe that, I need to see the evidence. And then the evidence was just gone, well, there you go. How much more do you want? That's just...
So the virgin birth?
No. No virgin birth.
Well, that's a symbolic.
Well, he was born of the daughter of Isis. He was born of a goddess. There's also Mithraism, all the things that are borrowed from all of these other things to cover up. How many people know the story of Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat? Joseph, who grew up to be the vizier of the Pope, of the Pope. Joseph and Moses are one and the same person. Because guess who wrote the story of Moses in the Bible? Moses did. Do you think he's going to write the fact that he was responsible for murdering 2 people and for getting them all chased out of Egypt? No, you're going to write the fact that you're a hero. So he writes about his alter ego as coming up from nothingness. Great story writing, but it's got holes in the story. And I'm happy to go through all of that sort of stuff because it goes into the Russian Revolution, goes into King Arthur. That was all about the bloodline. Guess what Excalibur means? Excalibur was not a sword. Excalibur was the symbol for the fact that King Arthur had reached age where he could produce an heir. It was a phallic symbol. The sword was a phallic symbol, that he could pull the sword from the stone. Metaphors. Because Igraine, who was the mother of Morgana, was the bloodline. See, when you don't just read the story, when you actually go into all the history of all the stuff, you understand why all the Druidic stuff is. Because the Druids were the lineage of the Egyptian priests through Ireland. There's a grave on the west coast of Ireland called the grave of Scota, who was an Egyptian princess. Egyptian bloodline went to Ireland, came back. When you do the research, and I'm not expecting you all to believe me, but I've been researching all this stuff for 40 years. And it's like, the more you dive into it, the more all the pieces absolutely fit together.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the law and wars and
All that sort of stuff.
Okay, so the Lyran laws. So the agenda for this planet. This is not an original planet of this solar system. Obviously, you know, we had a second sun in the solar system which split off, and it has its own planetary system, and most of you would know that as the Nibiru system. And every single solar system in the universe, without exception, has at least 2 stars in it. Why is that? Because there's no balance in this universe. Source says don't use the word balance. You never want to bring anything into balance. Because to bring something into balance, you're pulling this back and pushing this forward so that they're equal. And that's stagnation. So everything is in flow. You don't want to restrict. You don't want to restrict the feminine to keep in balance with the masculine, or vice versa, because they're totally independent of one another. You want both of them fully flowing when it's appropriate for them to come in. We don't want to battle. If I'm walking a tightrope and someone says, now you've got to balance on the tightrope, oh, so I have to stand still? The slightest thing comes along, I'm off. I have to keep moving to stay in motion. We don't want to get caught up in this idea we have to balance our life. If you balance it, you can't progress it forward. You can't go to where you need to go to. You want to be fully flowing in the energy. The other one, and I'm going to get back to it because he's now on a roll. Healing. Don't use the word healing. Because healing implies that something's wrong. And everything happens with purpose in the universe. If you've got a block, your higher consciousness says, right, I'm going to bring it to the right spot in the body so you become aware of the block so you can work through it. All this is self-generated. For those of you who know Louise Hay's work, she was the first one to really come out and do that. And a lot of people have taken it on board. They say, yes, all disease is self-generated. But then they say, now we can cure your disease with this. Or I can do Reiki to cure you. Or I can do this. No, if it's self-generated, only you can resolve it. And the way you resolve it is you come into conscious awareness of why it's there. And the block goes on. So don't use healing, because that's ego. If you think you can heal someone, you're an ego. If you think you can assist them to recalibrate where they're at, you're spot on. What's another word that we shouldn't use? Trust. I trust you. Where's that coming from? Trust comes, the use of the word trust comes from a position of mistrust. And it doesn't go away. The mistrust is always there. Now you're saying, oh, I trust you. Well, that means you don't really trust me. You're trying to put a whole series of expectations on me to do what you want me to do. Blame and forgiveness. If you forgive someone, what did you do beforehand? You blamed them. Forgiving someone does not take away the blame. It's you in a position of ego going, I'm above all of this, I'm going to forgive you. What about saying, I totally understand why it happened? I understand what it's all about. I comprehend it. I don't need to forgive you because I never blamed you in the first place. I know that it was an essential part of what's going on. Because everything in the universe happens with purpose. There's no right, there's no wrong. Now, where were we at? Because he's telling me to come back to that. The Lyran, good, because it leads into the Lyran stuff. So the planet's not an original planet of the solar system. One of the planets collided from Nibiru, collided with a planet that was in the orbit of where the asteroid belt now is, which is why we have an asteroid belt there. Planets only form at specific frequency nodes. It's all scientific. That frequency node, there was a planet there, this one collapsed. What was left over of this planet tumbled into what is now the Earth planet as a molten bit of rock spinning like that. And as it was spinning, to try and reduce the things, a small part of it pulled away and eventually broke off. Now those two things which were once now orbit around each other. Do you know the barycenter between the Moon and the Earth, which is the point where the pivot happens in the spin, is 3,000 kilometres inside the crust of the Earth? Which means that the two objects had to have been one. Because if another body comes along on the outside, the barycenter is going to be outside the planet. It's inside. And when it pulled away, guess what it left on this side? A big scar of land mass, which the scientists call Pangaea, the one continent. And what happened to the one continent? It broke up and started to move, continental drift. And why did that happen? Because as the planet's spinning, it's wanting to try and balance itself. And what causes it to do that? The next time Nibiru comes through and the forces pull against the crust so it can loosen up and it starts to move. You ask a scientist, what causes continental drift? They'll explain the mechanism, but they can't tell you what causes it. So that brings us to the Lyran laws. They're a group of fifth dimensional consciousnesses who all lived in harmony with one another. Individual consciousness is third dimension. Each of us here is basically in a third dimensional consciousness state. But you know those Russian dolls, the babushka dolls, where you've got one inside the other? The one in the middle is your third dimensional self. Consciousness slowed down becomes light. Remember that word? Let there be light. That's consciousness slowing down something to become light. Light slowed down becomes sound. Sound slowed down becomes matter. This is why when you apply sound frequencies to matter, matter will break apart. Because it's all part of the same spectrum all the way through. When the moon pulled apart, that's why we always see just the one side of the moon. Now some people say, oh, but the moon's hollow, it's been done this. Yes, because it's been mined by the reptilians and other races. So it's got huge caverns inside of it. Every time Nibiru comes around, we get a pole shift. It depends on whether it's a 5-degree shift or a 10-degree shift. It depends on how much the forces pull the crust apart. But about every 4th time round, it causes the whole crust to separate. Now when they're all together, you've got one north pole and one south pole. But the minute you separate it, you've got 2 north poles and 2 south poles. The core is massive and like poles repel. So the crust does this complete 180-degree flip and then reattaches. And there's heaps of evidence in Egypt where they talk about the sun twice sitting where it used to rise. They talk about pole shifts all the time. And the evidence actually shows that modern Egypt, before the last pole shift, was in the southern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere. And they talk about the red sun all the time. Why is that relevant? Because we're coming up for another pole shift. And the mechanism is such, and this is what I've been told the direction is going to happen. They're telling me, Alex, get 400 metres up because it's going to go this way and all the water is going to rush from the north and the Great Dividing Range is going to separate it. So if you're on the mountain range, you're going to be okay, but all the coastal areas are going to be washed away. So if you're living up here, good moon. For whatever reason, with your intuition, if you're down in the lower areas and you feel the pull to move, move. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. You'll always be where you're meant to be. The Lyrans, in the 5th dimensional consciousness, is like a hive mentality. 7th dimensional consciousness is the consciousness of suns. Solar consciousness. Our sun is a very young 7th dimensional consciousness. But all of fifth dimensional consciousnesses, like all consciousnesses, they want to ascend. They want to go up. To do that, they have to get rid of their blockages. See, the things that hold humans in third degree consciousness is their attachments to events. And those attachments come through here. What chakra is this? No. It's not. The heart's a pump. This is where we've been misled. The heart is a pump and it pumps chemicals around the body. Adrenaline, dopamine, etc. And the human body is totally susceptible to addiction. So as these emotions create chemicals, they pump around the body. Are you connected to other people through your blood? No, it just pumps through your system. That's why we're so egocentric, because we're preoccupied with the heart. What else is here? The lungs. Lungs are much bigger than that. This is about life force. That's what we need to learn. Because what's so special about the lungs? The breath. And think about, the Buddhists always talk about the importance of the breath. They say the car, the breath, the key, all of this stuff. Why are they talking about that? What's so special about the breath? Why is it the life force? Exactly. Now here's the next thing that people don't even consider. Every single breath you take in is breath that has come from every other living thing on the planet. And every breath you give out goes to every other thing on the planet. You are connected to everything else living on this planet through breath. And when we understand that, we get out of this egocentric belief that it's all about love and the heart. We've been misled. So these guys who were in their fifth dimensional consciousness over here, they had to have their beliefs exposed, that they were actually better than the other races. So the higher consciousnesses said, well, if that's what you want, we need to expose that. We're going to send the reptilians in, who are going to shake things up, and they all started fighting against each other. Once it was exposed, we can now get to the solution. And the solution was, we need to create a vehicle where each of the DNAs can all exist in the same vehicle at the same time and realise they're all connected. Nothing's better, nothing's worse, you just have a different purpose. Is your heart better than your lungs? No, they both have a different purpose. And the same thing goes right up through the consciousness. Everything has purpose. So, they orchestrated through the Anunnaki, which themselves are a hybrid race between the Syrians and the reptilians. They orchestrated all life on this planet, terraformed. One big, huge laboratory. And the human form was genetically engineered, stage 1, all the indigenous races. That's why they're so connected to the land. Because they've been brought up, like the Buddhists say, through Gaia consciousness, they are absolutely connected to the land. And they created different prototypes. And they wanted to know which ones were going to be successful enough as slave race to mine gold. So they put one race on Africa, one race on America, one race here. They put another race, the blue-skinned ones underneath and all that. And then once they knew that the species were viable, they went to the next level where they introduced the DNA from all the star races. White skin, yellow skin, white hair, red hair, blue eyes, all done in a test tube. That's why the majority of us are walking Frankenstein's monsters. We can't even get our own shit into here because we've got all these internal conflicts going on. When you look at the First Nations people and that, they are so beautifully settled into their land. But we're all strangers to this planet. Our consciousness is awesome. Now, all of these beings are allowed to come and incarnate in because of the DNA. They're here to help resolve the issue. That's why we're so frustrated that humans just don't get it. How can they not get it? It's so obvious. Well, it's because they're human. They haven't got past this level in their growth. They're like troubled teenagers. It's all about them. They all argue, power struggles, etc., etc. The human race is not going to ascend. The people who are saying this are star-seated consciousnesses who are still asleep, who know they're going back. Okay? They've dropped in to help out. They know they're going back. What they don't tell the humans is, sorry guys, you've got a lot of work to do before you can even get past third chakra level. So what have we got? We've got the lions, we've got the reptilians. The reptilians get a bad rap. By who more than anyone else? The Pleiadians. Because the Pleiadians want someone to blame. They don't want to take responsibility for their part in not resolving stuff. All the other races, the Syrians, they're all waiting for the Pleiadians to get their shit sorted out so that they can collectively move up. That's why the Pleiadians are here. They're the ones who are responsible for the kids under the ground, all of the stuff that we're up against, because they're the embodiment of the dark side that's not being honoured. But they're blaming someone else. They're blaming the reptilians. The reptilians couldn't give a shit. They're the most dominant species in the whole universe. They're incredibly intelligent. Why are they here doing what... They're not interested in that. They don't eat humans. They've got much better food sources. In fact, the whole bullshit about the eating the kids and everything is to get the adrenochrome. That's what it's all about, the adrenochrome, and how it's been corrupted through that. We have to be so careful that we don't believe what we've heard. Don't believe what I'm telling you. Don't believe a word of it. But if something deep down inside of you is resonating that somebody's saying that's making sense to me, I've been conditioned to think something completely different. Now here's what the truth does. When somebody says the truth, there's two reactions. Either when they say it, your body goes and you get a reaction like that, or you go and you get resistant. Only the truth can do that. I'll give you an example. Every single one of you here is a 7-foot tall pygmy. There's no reactions other than laughing back. What are you talking about? Yeah. Lies don't have the reactions that truths do. Your body, there are people who do this, their body, they measure things, kinesiologists and everything through truth, because it's ingrained within us to do that. But we've been conditioned by the scribes to think different things, to block us from the truths that we inherently know. I'm not here to tell you what your truth is. I'm here to share my awarenesses with you. And if my awarenesses trigger something in you, fantastic. If they don't trigger anything, that's fantastic too. Even if just one thing I've said tonight resonates, then my journey here has been successful. Down the track, things might happen. You go, oh, that's funny. Alex actually said that, and now it comes in. So never throw it out, put it on the shelf. Keep it until it doesn't work for you, and then you move on.
For your knowledge sharing, please share some knowledge on the subconscious.
On the subconscious, it's terminologies. See, I don't use the word subconscious, because there is only consciousnesses and the perception level from where you choose to look at them from. What people call the subconscious, I actually think is your higher conscious trying to send you messages. And does anyone else channel or get messages or anything like that? Okay, if you channel something, that is coming from a higher aspect of yourself. It's not an independent source, because we're all one. Everything's one. It can't be anything else. Your higher self is passing through information to to bring you into conscious awareness related to your purpose, whatever that may be. So the subconscious is like, there's no under-consciousness. It's all conscious. Everything's consciousness. It's a question from which level of your consciousness are you looking at things. I stopped looking at things from human consciousness point a long time ago because it's more exciting to know and see what's going on up here. I also know that if I'm telling you something that's at 7th or 9th dimensional consciousness, and your consciousness is still at 5th dimensional consciousness, that's like me as Professor of Mathematics talking to a grade 1 about maths. You're just not ready to understand it yet. So we have to know the level at which we share the information. How many people have heard of the law of attraction? Okay, there are no laws in the universe. For it to be a law, it must happen without exception. The law of attraction, there's heaps of exceptions. But there is one principle that applies to everything. And it's the principle by which Source created the concept of the universe. Because this is a perceived reality. It's not real, it's a perceived reality. And that concept is this: consciousness with intent, or rather through intent, manifests. If you're not being in your highest consciousness, you're too focused on the manifesting, which means the universe can't do what it's supposed to do. The only two things that we should focus on is broadening our level of consciousness, and to do that we must let go of all belief structures. If you have a belief structure, you can't expand your consciousness because your belief structure prevents you from doing that. So have awareness. Replace it with my awareness is this. Tomorrow it could be this. Awareness can't go backwards. It can only expand. What's the intent behind what you're doing? I want to be rich. Why do you want to be rich? Is it because you're fearful of being poor? Now, just because you want to be rich doesn't mean it's going to happen, because it has to be aligned with your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, I'm going to give you a key. How many people have done mantras and affirmations and all of that? Affirmations don't work. Okay, they don't work because they're based on lies. I weigh 70 tonne and I'm saying, I'm slim, and that's, your conscious knows you're lying to yourself. It says, come on, get out of it. But here's something, and if you think about it, you'll go, that is so simple, and it's actually everything I need right now. It's this. With gratitude, I am ready to accept whatever is in the interest of my highest purpose. How simple is that? There's no judgment, there's no expectation. I'm not telling the universe something that I actually don't need. I'm just saying, with gratitude, I'm ready to bring it on. Whatever it is, bring it on. And you know what? The whole universe is geared towards that. If you say that first thing in the morning, morning tea, lunchtime, say it 5 times a day.
You repeat that.
Sure can. With gratitude, I am ready to receive whatever is in the interests of my highest purpose. Now, I might even not have conscious awareness of what my highest purpose is, but my higher consciousness does. And the message it gets is, you ready? Okay, here you go. It will never give you more than you need. It will never give it to you before you need it. It will provide exactly what you need in alignment with your purpose when you need it.
You say it once more, please, brother.
Sure can. I'll say it as many times because I love it so much. With gratitude, I'm ready to receive whatever is in alignment with my highest purpose. And my gratitude. Is it an affirmation? How's it an affirmation? I'm not stating anything as a fact. All I'm saying with gratitude is I'm ready to receive something.
I am ready.
I'm ready. Well, I am ready.
Well, affirmation.
No, an affirmation is we're saying something that is not a state of truth. I am slim and I'm 50 feet wide. Okay? Well, just pointing it out. Okay? The only reason you could say that's an affirmation is if you could know I actually wasn't ready. Okay? But I am ready. I'm wide open and ready because I understand it works.
The universe has a lot of points. Also, this is just
No, it doesn't. Because if it's not in alignment with your purpose, it won't provide it. It doesn't. When you get it,
the universe always fulfills what we ask for.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't fulfill what you asked for. It won't give you if it's not in alignment with your purpose. Have you asked for $1 million? Did you ever get it?
I have never asked for it.
There's a lot of people out there who do, but they don't get it. It doesn't give you what you asked for. It gives you what you need.
Well, you need to always fulfill, but...
Yes, first and foremost. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. That's why when you say I'm ready to receive whatever is in alignment with my purpose, I'm ready. And if you don't think you are, don't say it. If you don't think you're ready to receive whatever the universe wants to give you that's in alignment with your highest purpose, then don't say that because you're not ready. But there's no judgment on it. See, I'm here and I'm so grateful because the universe is providing for me, you beautiful, wonderful people who are open to hear what I have to say. It doesn't matter to me whether you judge it right or wrong, but you're here to hear. Sorry, just corrected me. It's not what I have to say. It's what I have to pass through you. Because most of you, in some way, aren't hearing your Creator. If you go into a room and there's 1,000 televisions and they're all blasting on a different channel to full volume, you have to turn all of those distractions completely off until you discover this little 1950s valve radio in the corner that's just whispering pearls of wisdom that change you when you hear them. You can turn all of those TVs back full blast again, you can still hear that valve radio clear as day above everything. And that's what I want for all of you, to be able to hear that valve radio without the distractions and all the other stuff. All this stuff with the common law thing, it's all a game. To see, for you to see where you fit in. And the beauty of it is each and every one of you is not taking the vaccine.
The reason the vaccine is
Well, it doesn't cure anything, it's changing, stuff like that. It's a whole issue. But you're all awake to that. And that's the beauty.
Gratitude, one of the keys to achieving with that 50,000.
Absolutely. Don't sit in judgment of other people. If anything, you are allowed to evaluate where they are in their journey. It's neither right nor wrong, but you can evaluate, because once you've evaluated where they are in their journey, you can determine if there is in some way you can assist them. But if you judge them as right or wrong, you're not going to assist them because you're too busy judging.
So how do you evaluate where you are in your journey? And how do you be confident of your purpose?
That's a great question. Just want to repeat it so everyone can hear it. That's a really good question.
How do you be conscious? How do you be sure of what your purpose is? Like I'm so confused, and I've got so many people telling me what the purpose is.
I do a lot of work helping people actually get their purpose clear in their mind. It takes about 10 minutes to do it.
And so how do you evaluate yourself? How do you evaluate yourself and where you are to get to know what your purpose is? How do you do that?
By the mirrors that present to me every day. Everyone else is a mirror to me of where I'm at. And if I'm not being true to my purpose, there's certain reactions and certain things that happen which show me I'm not being clear in communicating. I'm not being the channel that I'm supposed to be because the message isn't coming through. So Source says, do you know what? They didn't quite get it. Could you explain it any differently? And there's times When I've come out with things that I've never heard of before, and I hear it and I go, oh, that's beautiful, I've got to write that down. Because it was specifically for someone else.
Yeah, but where do you get your... How are you confident in your authority to say that to people?
Because I have no fear of being judged for what I say. Because the words, it's what they mean to you that matters, not what they mean to me.
I don't know fear, but I don't know if I'm right.
Well, I don't know if I'm right either. All I have is awareness. Because there's no right or wrong. There's just the awareness of the information. So my responsibility is not to judge the information as to whether it's right or wrong. It's just to pass it on. Yeah, yes, I think it
Falls in place and drop the ego.
I know the common truth.
The man nailed it! Say it again!
Falls into place when you drop the ego.
Yeah.
Can I respond? And I'm just responding to the bit where he's saying, how I know that he was saying because of what's there.
There's some, what I call universal truths, and that is the I can't see itself. The I can't see itself. So the I, who I am, I don't actually see myself. It's only through my relationship that I have with others that gives me a concept of how they reflect me favourably or unfavourably, that I know who I am. Yeah? So that's based on a truth in that way, and that sort of, that's how I am. Yeah? Does that make sense?
I spent the best part of 25 years and I'm still in the performing arts industry, but I spent 25 years as an opera singer and right at the top level. I mean, I got offered the roles of Phantoms of Air and Ladies. I mean, that's the level that I was at. It was all ego. I got so lost in what other people thought of me that I could never show who I really was, because I was too busy pandering to the ego that others imposed on me and my own ego that reacted. And it was crippling me. And Source did a beautiful thing. Because I said, I don't care what other people think of me, but I said it out of ego. So I got accused of something I didn't do. My name got plastered all over the papers. I lost my career, I lost everything, and I'm sitting in jail saying, what the hell's happened? And in that moment, Source said to me, you will clear your name and you will figure it out. And I went, this is all to do with ego, isn't it? It is. So I learned for my ego to be my servant. The role of the ego is the interface between the consciousness and this world. It's the ego that tells you that hot is hot, cold is cold, and all that. It's the interface that happens through the pineal gland. But it must serve you. And if you start projecting beyond its job into the future based on what's happened in the past, you get out of the now. And you're caught up between wanting and fearing. And when you let all of that go, and you just sit in being, and you say to the ego, your job is to give me everything that's going on now. Make me aware of what people are thinking, what's happening on the other side of the planet, the reasons behind everything. Then you, ego, are absolutely the most brilliant thing in the world. Ego is really. I'm that important? Absolutely. I can't do what I need to do unless you just focus on keeping me in tune with everything in the now. You can't get rid of your ego. It's there for a reason. What you have to do is a reminder what its purpose is, and it goes, yep. And suddenly, you become aware of everything on a different level. But you're 100% right. It's to do with the ego. Keith, did you have a question? A statement?
Yeah, no, it's a question. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's a question, mate. What Peter was talking about here before was the fact that your eyes don't actually see anything because they're not connected to the brain. There's a synapses where the nerves get close to each other, but then there's always a break. So the assumptions that we make are exactly that, they're assumptions, because there's no direct connection. So what I think is red may not be the same red as anybody else in this room. But what I'm really saying is we have assumptions about everything, and we're here tonight talking about basically the assumption that somehow or other we can get the paperwork right, we can do whatever's necessary to become free. And what we have kind of drifted into with Alex being here tonight was we started with the idea of common law or some kind of relationship to authority around us that we're not happy with. But the reason why he and I clicked, even though we've only known each other for 5 minutes, is because this is posing a question. My idea of what we're actually doing is to become free. You're free physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually, you're not free at all. And the word free is even a concept. For us to be able to be looking in the mirror and totally happy with what we see in the mirror, we have stuff bounced back from everybody else. As I think you said, or one of you said, that it's the bouncing back from other people that is our actual mirror. So where I, as the convener of this Tuesday nights, wanted to take this was to a point where we said the paperwork sure is important, but it's the understanding of who we are that really is what this is all about. Is that a fair question?
You've nailed it.
And you'd like to answer that?
Well, I don't think I need to nail it, or just expand on it, because you've actually nailed it when you said about wanting to be free. You already are.
Yeah.
And when you start to actually be it, you don't attach to what's going on. You see it for the game it is. And you understand it's a game. My human self can experience it, but don't attach to it so that it affects you 1 second after it. Experience it, detach from it, and you stay in this blissful state of going, oh my God, I picked to come to this planet with a purpose at the most extraordinary time in not just what's happening on this planet, but this is a pivotal point in the shift of the whole universe. And it's related to another universe as well, which I don't have to go into. But the point is, in your infinite wisdoms, you're here now. While the biggest changes, not only on this planet but in the universe, are about to unfold. And here's the great thing about it. Everything that manifests is because of it. You're not witnesses, you're contributing. Every single thought you have travels throughout the universe, instantaneously creating the fabric of this illusion. Every single thought you have. And here's the other beautiful side. Every single thought that's in the universe travels through you at the same time. You're both a transmitter and a receiver of this co-creation that you're all co-creating the bad guys. Because without it, there's nothing interesting happening. And here's the beautiful side. You actually know what the outcome's going to be. If you didn't know in your highest consciousness what the outcome was going to be, you wouldn't get involved. But you're all frustrated because we're not there yet. Frustration is one of the best signs you can ever have because you know the outcome, you just want it to happen now. Focus on that. You all know that this is going to turn around. You all know the Illuminati is going to collapse. You know everything's going to right itself and we're going to go into a whole new world because that's what the agenda of everyone is, a whole new world. The twist is the cabal think it's going to be theirs. But in actual fact, because of what they're doing, they're uniting human consciousness. They're actually, they're going to be blindsided, because the very thing they're trying to do in having one world government is having the effect of uniting the consciousness towards us. And all the sheep who've taken the vaccine, they're all going to die, leaving only the awakened behind, a consciousness. I say to people, why are you spending time trying to fix the old when you could be using it, laying the foundation for what we really want? Spend the time on that. All of you guys here are extraordinary beings, because otherwise you wouldn't be here listening to me waffle on. Seriously, you would have walked out 10 minutes into it.
God, I'm not going to waste my time listening to this guy.
But you're all here. And I know I've challenged a lot of you. Because I said that at the beginning. Things I'm going to say are going to challenge you and resist you. But it's getting you thinking. And all of the questions and all of the responses, I'm so grateful for. I don't feel attacked when people have a go at me. Oh, you've opened a doorway for information. I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing, Pete especially, for inviting me here and allowing me to speak to you. I am not someone who blows in the door and then disappears and there's no follow-up. Once I commit to people, which I do all the time, I'm there forever. Doesn't matter what it is, what's going on. If you want to talk, to Alex, catch up, come chat, awesome. Because I know this journey, whilst you may think you make it on your own, you don't. We actually all make it together. Because it's only together that the shift will happen. Not as individuals. I'd actually like you to do something for me. You don't have to do it, but I think you'll understand when I ask you to do this. Why? I want you to target someone in the room that you don't know. And just go up to them and say, thank you for being in my life and helping me to realise how special you are and how special I am. Simple, isn't it? Someone you don't know, and just give them a hug and say thank you for helping me to realise how special you are in my life and how special you are in my life. You reckon you can do that? You don't have to do it, but feel free if you want to do it.